Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala nabi al-ummi. So inshallah we will continue with the video challenge, I guess. And what I was going to do was make just 5 videos per topic and then move on to the next topic. So the first topic that we had picked was sabr and why we suffer and why we go through trials and tribulations in life. So inshallah today we will go through the reasons why trials are basically necessary for life. Especially as a believer, they are very important, that a person, when he goes through difficulties, a lot of good comes out of it. So we will go through what those goods would be. So and if we can compare initially trials and tribulations to how a plant takes benefit from the sun. So although the sun scorches down and outwardly looks as if the plants will be suffering in the heat, but we know that without the heat of the sun, the plants won't do so well. And that's basically, if we can really contemplate on how that happens and how much benefit the plants receive, then we'll be able to make sense of how a person, a believer, benefits so much from going through difficulties. So the first reason I would say is the rapid spiritual growth due to going through difficulties. So basically what happens is a person is forced to grow in those qualities that are encouraged in Islam. And number one would be sabr. So we know sabr is a very crucial part of a person's iman, and the hadith says وَمَا أُعْطِيَ أَحَدٌ عَطَاءً خَيْرًا وَأَوْسَعَ مِنَ الصَّبْرِ. No one has been given a gift better and more vast than patience. Meaning patience is the best and the most vast of a gift that a person can be given. And what we learn from there is that sabr trickles down to every part of a person's life and basically makes every part of the person's life a better life. So that is basically forced learning in times of suffering. When a person is suffering, then he is learning a lot of sabr. And number two would be tawakkul, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when times are good, a person doesn't necessarily think about how much he trusts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he sees the outward means making things happen, so he doesn't really need to focus on his reliance. But once a person is shaken, that's when the tawakkul is brought up. And that's why there's a ayat 33 surah and 11 verse, وَزُلْزِلُوا زِلْزَالًا شَدِيدًا. And these believers, they were shaken to their core. So when that happens, that's when the iman erupts and a person is reminded of how much trust and reliance they have upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that also is achieved when a person goes through difficult times. Number 3 would be humbleness. When things are in line, if things are happening in the very easy way for a person, then that easily can lead a person to pride. But then when things are not going according to their nafs, that's when a person becomes humble. And we know without humbleness, there's no entry to Jannah. The hadith says if a person has even a particle of pride, then he will not be able to enter Jannah. And all this happens when a person is going through difficulties. He's bound to become humble. And number 4 would be empathy. A person feels the pains of others because he's been through difficulties, and now he can feel the pain of others. And that again is a very big sunnah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was told in Surah Wad-Duha that we found you an orphan and we give you refuge, so be kind and gentle to the orphans and take care of them. So from there again we learn empathy, that because the Prophet ﷺ had been through difficulties, it was expected of him to have learned from that hard part of his life, and now he's able to take care of others and have sympathy for them. And that was empathy. And the next one is gratitude. When a person when things are going well, then it's hard to be grateful because a person feels like good times are the default. Again, the good times are a default. They're supposed to be forever good times, and I'm supposed to be having a perfect life. And what that leads to is a person becomes complacent in being grateful. But when a person goes through difficulty and then the blessings are restored, that's when a person feels like, okay, so these were blessings that were taken away for a little while. Now that I got them back, I need to be very grateful for them. So we can apply that to even like a basic cold, a basic flu. A person gets sick and now he's having a hard time getting up. He's got headaches, dizzy, coughing, and runny nose, and so much problems. And then when all that goes away and a person is having a healthy day, now he realizes, wow, to have a normal day when all these things and symptoms are not there is a really blessed day. And now when a person wakes up in that state, he'll be feeling way more grateful. So many qualities are achieved through difficulties. And another mention in the hadith is that those who are the closest to those who are tested the most in life are the prophets, and those who are the closest in lifestyle to the prophets. So again, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the prophets to be the most excellent of his servants, so what ends up happening is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests them the most to show how obedient his servants are and how other servants can learn from their difficulties. So the more a person is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more he's tested. Although ironically, initially we might think, no, but that doesn't make any sense. If you love someone, you should pamper them more. But because the pampering in a spiritual sense is spiritual growth, then for that reason the prophets are the tested the most. And lastly, I would mention that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined a certain rank for a person to go to Jannah and be at that level, and by chance the person is not achieving that because of his laziness or whatever it is, the person is not achieving that. So what ends up happening is he's falling behind in the growth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts him through difficulties so he can reach that rank. And we know Jannah has 100 levels. So let's just say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined someone to be in level 70. But the way his life is carrying on, he's only going to make it to level 40 in Jannah. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put him through difficulties to bring him up to a level 70 in the hereafter. So we learn all the benefits today of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us through difficulties and trials and tribulations, and we know that if we can deal with it patiently, then that is one of the greatest gifts a person can be given. So may Allah give us tawfiq to benefit from whatever was said, and may Allah make it easy for us to practice. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.